They say that youth is wasted on the young, and I can honestly say that in some way it was wasted on me. Not that I saw my 20s through the bottom of a glass or lived them in front of a screen with a popcorn bucket in my hand. But still, if only I knew what I know now and I want to share with you in this video, I would be successful and long retired by now. I think every one of us would like to live a life of freedom. Freedom to explore new worlds, to nurture your passions, to do what you love without having to work a job you don't like just to be able to survive. We've come a long way since our ancestors had to hunt for survival. They had to, all day risking their life just to have one more day to live. But we live in a different time now. Most of the money we create with our economy is not intended for our survival, but it's for our comfort. Now we work for progress. Like tiny ants, we keep the wheel of our economy spinning to make sure that none of us miss their essential needs, but also a ton of comfort we don't really need. More and more people right now, including myself, are getting tired of having to work for a job they don't like just for the sake of a functioning economy. We are yearning for a life where we are free to develop our passions, to foster our talents, and enjoy our young years instead of selling 45 years of slavery for 10 years of freedom in our 70s. Many movements have been born, including the so-called FIRE movement, and they all aim for the same goal: reaching financial independence. The internet and social networks are bursting with videos and blogs about how to reach financial independence and retire by the age of 30, being able to enjoy a life of freedom and happiness. Most of these sources will tell you about rules like the 4% rule, or the bucket strategy, or the 25 times annual spending that you have to accumulate in order to retire by 30, and many other strategies, all taken from the books. And although these strategies are important, for what I've learned, and I wish I knew in my 20s, there is much more than that. So I want to try to condense in this video all aspects that I consider to be vital in order to retire by the age of 30 and live a beautiful life free of the chains of an unpleasant job. To do this, we will cover all the financial planning aspects and the mindset and perspective that you need, and they will guide you in the next years through this path to financial freedom. I want this video to really give you a complete overview so that afterwards you have all the guidelines that you need in order to achieve in 10 years what people are usually supposed to achieve in 45. And of course, if you'll enjoy this kind of content, don't forget to subscribe to my channel, hit the like button, and let's connect on social media like Instagram, TikTok, or Facebook. To give you an overview, we will first start by reflecting on the mindset that you need if you want to retire early. We will then try to calculate how much money you actually need based on your goals and expectations, and then we'll go into detail on the 4 main strategies to retire early, which are reducing expenses, optimizing your savings, boosting your income, and investing in assets. Now, the first question you need to ask yourself is, why are you pursuing financial freedom? This may sound like a stupid question, but the truth is that, based on your goals in life, the path to financial freedom will need different strategies to be traveled. Some of you want to retire by the age of 30 because you want to travel the world. Some may be because they hate their job, or maybe just because they are against consumerism and would like to live a life of simple means. To retire early, you need to change the way you think about retirement and money. Early retirement doesn't mean retiring in a conventional sense of stopping all work. Although lying on a floating mattress in the middle of a swimming pool all day isn't exactly a bad idea. But instead, if you want to retire, you should do it to reclaim your time to do the things that matter to you. Retiring early is possible for everybody if you start soon enough, but it requires more or less efforts based on your goals and expectations. So first you need to set your expectations and start from there. But if you ask me, money only matters if it helps you live a life you love. Early retirement is not about accumulating as much money as possible. It's about having enough money to be free to pursue your dreams and passions. Now, there are many ways to sustain yourself financially while you're retired, and using the money that you accumulated early on should just be a part of it. Of course, you may want to spend the first years traveling the world, which is, by the way, something I would do. But there's going to be a point in your life in which you want to have an impact, and that's actually a good thing. Maybe there's a passion of yours that you could transform into a money maker, or maybe you'd like to start a side hustle, or maybe you just hate your corporate job, but you'd be okay with starting a part-time job in something that you really like. So mindset shift number 1 is seeing early retirement as a chance to do something you love, not as a chance to do nothing. I think it makes sense to you. And by the way, maybe what you love is something that you can monetize in the future. And that could help you immensely, because in this way, you're not gonna have to save money for 50 years before leaving your normal job. Now, some of you might say, Rick, we're talking about retirement. I just wanna sleep, sip from my cocktail and watch television when I'm 30. Okay, I can understand that. But even in this case, you're not going to have to save so much money that is going to sustain you financially for 50 years. Instead, you're going to have to lay the foundation of a money system, a money tree, that is going to keep growing your money long before you retire. In other words, creating passive income sources. Regardless of the path you choose, retiring by 30 will require a lot of work and frugality upfront. And therefore we get to the mindset shift number 2, which is about a lifestyle mindset. You can aspire to become rich and live a luxurious lifestyle. And I wish you everything you want in life. But it's going to be much easier to retire early if you aspire to a modest, simple lifestyle. Too many people have won the lottery only to see their money disappear within a couple of years. Too many people have budgeted their money wrong and found themselves broke. If you want to retire by 30, you're going to have 50, 60, possibly 70 years of your life to finance with your savings. So live below your means. This might sound simple, but it's a simple, most repeated advice given by the people that made their millions early. And it's a mindset shift because living frugally shouldn't end once you've reached your financial target. Instead, after retirement, living below your means is going to become even more important. Okay, the first step is to develop an honest estimate about how much you will need. And to do this, let's start with longevity. According to the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, the average lifespan of an American woman is 81.4 years and 76.3 for an American male. So basically, by retiring at 30, you're gonna need to stretch your savings for around half a century. And if you come from my beautiful island Sardinia, that might probably become 70 years of retirement. Seriously, we got more centenaries than shops there. Anyway, 50 years as a retired person is our starting point. Then you need to define your future lifestyle. Besides living frugally, you need to define what kind of expenses are you exactly going to face in the future. Take a paper and a pen and try to list down all the expenses that you expect to have. Don't forget to consider things that aren't relevant for you right now, but can become relevant as you mature. For example, kids or a bigger house. So the lifestyle you picture will define how much money you're gonna have to save up. If you wanna know how to calculate your yearly expenses, then check out my video about getting out of debt that I will link somewhere here. When the list is done, the next question is, how much money do I actually need to save up? Now, there are thousands of ways to calculate this, and each one is less reliable than the other. But don't panic, I just mean that if you think about it, you can't possibly think that you're going to be able to calculate exactly how much money you're going to have to spend in the next 50 years. But you can make a good estimate. If you want to be conservative, you could calculate your average annual expenses and multiply it by the number of years that you're going to be retired. So imagine that you spend $40,000 after tax every year and you expect to live 50 years after retirement, then you're going to have 40,000 times 50 equals $2 million. But still, if you consider an average inflation rate of 4%, your $40,000 of today, they're going to worth like, what, $6,000 of today's money in 50 years. What I want to say is you can't live off your savings unless you find a way to monetize your income while you're retired. And you do this either by investing your money or by finding a way to monetize your passions after you're retired. Now, considering that you will at least invest your money and get returns from it, because believe me, you will have to, a method that you can use to estimate your necessary savings is the one suggested by the FIRE movement, which by the way means financial independence, retire early, and it's based on the 4% rule. The theory behind the 4% rule is that if you manage to save 25 times your annual cost of living and you invest it in a mix of stocks and bonds, after retirement, you're going to be able to withdraw 4% of this portfolio every year without ever running out of money. And this is because the portfolio will grow each year more than the 4% that you withdraw every year. For example, let's say you need $50,000 per year to sustain the lifestyle you want. Now, using the 4% rule, if you multiply 50,000 times 25, you get 1.25 million. If well invested, this sum will grow by more than the 4% that you withdraw, namely more than $50,000, so that this sum will never decrease under 1.25 million. Now, all these numbers don't really take into consideration your real-life concerns. Think about how your lifestyle is going to change in the future. Think about kids, about a house, about a family, or new hobbies that you may have in the future. And think about how much you're most likely to receive in Social Security benefits. If you want to calculate that, there is a calculator here. And once you have a clear picture of the needs and wants and the lifestyle that you want in the future, try to integrate these costs into your annual cost of living. And then you can use the 4% rule and multiply this value by 25. giving you the sum that you're going to have to save up. Okay, now that we know pretty much how much we need to save, it's time to talk about how do we get to that sum. So the first step is simple. Keep your expenses under control. For example, subscribing to this channel is free and it doesn't impact your finances at all. But it will give you a lot of important information about how to improve your lifestyle and your finances. So be nice and click that subscribe button over here. Thank you. Anyway, unless you just won the lottery, even after subscribing to my channel, it's gonna be hard to keep accumulating money up to your target saving amounts unless you start learning how to cut costs and to live frugally. The less you spend on retirement, the less you need to save. Likewise, the less you spend today, the more you can save for retirement. Now, usually we spend money for 3 reasons. 1, because we need to buy things for our survival or for our basic care, and these are the so-called needs. 1, because we want to buy things that we don't need, and these are our wants, and 1, because we have to give money back to the bank because we bought stuff that we couldn't afford, and these are the debts. The worst expense you can have is the interest that you pay on your debt, and I'm talking in particular about the horrible and dangerous credit card debt. Getting out of debt is the best investment you can make. In fact, the money that you save on interest by not having debt is better than any return that you can possibly get by investing your money in the stock market. The only debt you should think about taking, but only if you do it in the right way, is in my opinion the mortgage. For me, the right way means that you buy a small place and you set the mortgage over a long period of time so that the amount that you pay every month is basically equal or less than what you'd pay for rent. So in this case, you're doing a right investment because you're paying less than what you'd pay anyway for rent, but you're insuring an asset that in the future might come in handy, above all if you want to reach financial freedom. If you want to know everything about how to get out of debt, then take a look at my video I published a couple of weeks ago and I'll link it somewhere here. Now, there are also other debts that are useful. For example, the student loan might be useful in case you really want to specialize in something, or a debt that is taken to start a business. But that's a whole other story. This is not a negative debt, this is a positive debt. While you reduce your debt, or even in order to reduce your debt, you're going to have to reduce your wants. And the key here is live below your means. This includes restaurants, expensive gadgets, phones, clothes, and by the way, it's everything in my video about getting out of debt. So after this, take a look at it. But cutting your wants is not going to be enough. In fact, the average American spends around 70% of his income on housing, transportation, and food. So trimming your budget in those 3 main areas is going to have the greatest impact on your overall savings. Number 1 is housing. If you're young, live in a small apartment, or even better, live with roommates. And if you can keep living with your parents if your goal is to save as much money as possible as soon as possible. I know, your parents are not going to be happy about this, but financial freedom, this might be the price. Number 2 is transportation. Settle for a cheap second-hand car, or even better, use public transportation. This will save you thousands of dollars every year, and please don't lease a car and don't get in debt in order to buy one. Number 3 is food. Avoid restaurants and get used to cooking your own food. Try to use coupons when you buy groceries and be always aware of what you buy and their price. Now, making sacrifices in your youth is extremely important, and you should seize it as an opportunity to be able to retire as soon as possible. The sooner you're going to start making these sacrifices, and the easier they're going to be to adopt, and the more impact they're going to have on your goal to retire early. While reducing your expenses, you're creating more savings for you. So start moving part of these savings into a savings account of yours and use it as an emergency fund. Imagine that at some point you get fired, or you have to move, or something wrong happens. Whatever happens, you might have to experience a period of time without any income. So my suggestion is to save an amount of money that is equal to 6 months of income. It doesn't necessarily have to be in the form of liquidity, but it must be in a form that you can cash out immediately if you need to. To maximize your savings, you can also think about signing up to your employer's 401k. The money you save like this is deposited into the plan before it's taxed, so less of your income will be taxed now. Plus, your savings will grow tax-free until you withdraw them in retirement. Hence, they will compound at a faster rate. But the biggest advantage is when also your employer contributes to your 401k. Let's say that your employer contributes with $1 for every dollar that you deposit, up to 6% of your pay. In this case, do your best to contribute to the whole 6% because you're getting an instant 100% return thanks to your employer. If a 401k is not an option for you, you can sign up for a Roth IRA. You'll fund it with money out of your paycheck that's already been taxed. But the advantage is that in the future, when you withdraw the money, it's not going to be taxed again. Alternatively, you can contribute to a traditional IRA. Now, all of this about 401k or Roth IRA only regards a part of your savings, because the main part must be used to get out of debt if you have any. And after that, it needs to be invested in other assets, but we'll see that later. Now, we've seen the importance of cutting costs and saving money, but there is one downside to cutting costs. You can only go so low before life becomes unbearable. And there's probably nothing worse than living in sacrifice your whole life, depriving yourself of every joy just to find out in the end that it hasn't been enough. So if you want to save in 10 years the money that you're going to spend in 50 years afterwards, then you're going to have to boost your income. And for this, you basically have two ways. One is incrementing your income on your actual job, and one is creating other sources of income. With your current job or kind of occupation, you can basically increase your salary by asking for a pay rise, by upgrading your education through seminars or training so that you can get a higher paid job, or simply by changing job with one with a higher salary. Alternatively, you always have the option of taking a part-time job. But if you really want to retire by 30, I won't lie to you. Just relying on salary bumps or switching jobs to get a higher salary will not really help you achieve your financial freedom within 10 years. Instead, if you're young, you should focus on starting a business or a side hustle that you can potentially leverage to earn much more money than you can ever earn in a lifetime with a normal job. In today's economy, it's arguably never been so easy to make money out of a passion. So if you have a hobby, a passion, or a unique skill, try to turn it into a side hustle, and this can potentially become a passive income stream in early retirement. It's really important though to choose the right side hustle. You need to find something that can potentially impact many people or impact them enormously. For example, if you open a grocery shop, you can just impact the people that live in your neighborhood or in your district. So if you want to increase your income from it, you're going to be forced to increase the hours you spend on this business, and there are only so many hours in a day. Other side hustle though allow you to access the whole world as a possible audience. This is the kind of side hustle that you need to start. For example, one of my favorite is becoming a content creator. It doesn't have to be YouTube, you can also start courses or even start a blog. Whatever passion you have, there is a way to put that content available on the internet and monetize it. If you want to learn how to get rich quick with a side hustle, there's a video I made recently and I'm gonna link it here. And I suggest you to watch it. This video is going to give you all the tools that you need to decide or to understand which kind of business is right for you and which kind of business has the potential to make you rich in a short period of time. There are different aspects to consider like scale, control, entry, need, but you'll find all the information in the video. Additionally to this, if you want a list of the best online businesses that are going to boom in 2023, and that most likely are going to be your best choice if you want to retire early, then check out my video about the 7 top online businesses that are going to boom in 2023. I'm going to link it here. Okay, now we know that we need to work out a plan for a business that will give us great returns and also increase our income as much as possible. But still, your plan is to retire when you're 30, right? It might be that after retirement you manage to create a business based on your passion that you can monetize, but still maybe you just don't want to do anything. In both cases, before retirement, you want to invest as much money as possible because you want your savings to grow after retirement, not to decrease. Because if you don't invest any money in the future, you're going to withdraw money every year for your cost of living, and at some point, sooner or later, you're going to find yourself without money again. There are many ways to invest your money in your 20s, but I got 4 main tips for you. Number 1 is invest in the stock market. There are 2 kinds of people in the world. The people that say that investing in the stock market is risky and dangerous, and the people that say that it's going to make you rich. The truth is, it's really easy to make it risky and dangerous if you start picking stocks yourself. Because let's face it, none of us is Warren Buffett. But a wonderful solution to this is called exchange traded funds, or ETFs. When you buy an ETF, you're basically buying a basket of many companies. And the growth of the ETF follows the weighted average growth of the company inside it. So the advantage is that, for example, instead of buying a company in the automotive sector that might go well but might also decrease in value in the long term, you buy the whole automotive sector within an ETF. And the result of the ETF is going to be the result of all the companies inside it. So you're going to have some automotive companies that don't go well in the long term, but some other companies that will increase. And the final result of the ETF is usually going to be a positive one in the long term. But let me make it easy for you. Probably the best ETF that you can buy, that is, by the way, what Warren Buffett says that his family should invest in when he passes away, is the one that follows the S&P 500 index, Standard & Poor's. For example, the one that Vanguard offers, that is called Vanguard S&P 500 ETF. The Standard & Poor's 500 S&P 500 index is a diversified collection of hundreds of the best American companies and includes companies like Apple, Microsoft, Tesla, Amazon, and so on. The S&P 500 has been growing in the past 100 years with an average growth of around 9%. Now, we are entering a period of recession, of difficulties and economical crisis, so of course I cannot promise you 9% in the future, but still, you're gonna have greater returns in long term with S&P 500 than risking your investments with single stocks that you don't know really how they're gonna develop in the future. But let's assume that in the future, in the long term, it's still gonna grow with 9% average return. So, let's say you are 20 and you start investing $1,500 every month until you are 30. When you're 30, at your 30th birthday, you're gonna have a portfolio with a value of $273,000, with a total return of more than 50%. This sum will already give you $24,000 return per year if you assume 9% growth, which for some people is already enough. But invest 10 more years, from 30 to 40 years old, and the compound interest start kicking in, giving you $921,000 when you're 40, almost $1 million. And this is gonna give you over $80,000 per year without doing anything. Of course, living frugally, avoiding debt, starting a side hustle, all these steps are gonna extremely help you speed up your path to retirement because you have much more money to invest and you're gonna reach your saving sum much sooner. Now, let's talk about risk tolerance. Usually, the younger you are, the more you should risk. And since you're probably in your 20s or even very younger, you should risk more. Considering the drop they experience, you could think about investing a small part of your savings into established cryptos like Bitcoin, Ethereum, Cardano, Solana, or Binance Coin. No one can know the future, but considering what happened in the last 10 years of crypto, it's possible that in the future, in the next 4 years, they're gonna give you great returns. Nevertheless, limit the portion of your savings that you invest in risky stuff like crypto to a max of 5 or 10%. To mitigate the risk, you should diversify even more. Already choosing the S&P 500 ETF instead of single stocks helped you a lot diversify within the realm of stock equities. Moreover, you took some more risks with crypto, and if you want, you can also diversify by buying REITs, real estate investment trusts. Or if you can invest in real estate yourself. They are great assets and they will always pay you back passive income for life. It's going to be hard at the beginning to enter the business, but it's going to be a great source of passive income. If you want to break the ice with real estate, try to start by buying a small flat. Try to negotiate a good interest rate and stretch the payback time frame to the point that you pay for the mortgage every month less than what you get by renting it. This way you have two advantages. First of all, you have an asset that pays for itself. And second, you have an additional layer of security for your future, because in worst case scenario, you can use the flat yourself and you're never gonna have to pay rent again. The last suggestion that I wanna give you before closing this video is always have a backup plan. Times can get tough and none of us can foresee the future economy. That's why I said you should always have an emergency fund that you can survive with for at least 6 months. Without an emergency fund, in case of need, you may have to cash in some of your investments. And the risk of doing so is that if the markets are down, you may crystallize a loss. Besides having a backup plan, try to be flexible about your retirement age. I know we said 30 years old, but in case you get to 30 and you're not sure if you have enough money saved or invested or enough assets, then it's not a bad idea to keep working a little bit more and accumulate some money. And in the meantime, since you still have some years before retirement, don't forget to subscribe to my channel, hit the like button and ring the bell so that you will be notified of future videos. Let me know what your plans for early retirements are, write me down in the comment section below, and connect with me on social networks like Instagram, TikTok or Facebook. Well, I wish you a great evening, my friends. Start saving money and investing money, and I'll see you in the next video. Ciao!